My name is Barbara. I live alone now, in a quiet suburb just outside Savannah, Georgia, in a red brick colonial house with white shutters, a front porch with creaky rocking chairs, and magnolias blooming like little explosions of white in the spring. I bought this house 5 years ago, back when I still believed in family, in loyalty, in marriage. It was supposed to be our forever home, mine and Richard's, back when I thought forever meant something. Now it's just me. But let me take you back to the night everything changed. The night that ripped off the mask my so-called family wore. The night I realized blood doesn't make people kind, just close enough to stab you deeper. It started with a dinner invitation from my husband's sister. Vanessa, an invitation I should have torn up the moment it arrived. Vanessa always needed a stage. Her house in Charlotte, North Carolina, was the perfect backdrop for her brand of smug superiority. Towering ceilings, white marble countertops, and a backyard so immaculate it looked like it had never seen dirt. Her husband, Marcus, made his money in commercial real estate, money they never let you forget about for one damn second. You'd think she invented the concept of wealth. The family gathered around the dinner table, a long oak slab adorned with polished silverware, linen napkins folded like origami, and crystal glasses full of overpriced Chardonnay. Richard sat beside me, silent and checked out like always, scrolling through messages on his phone when he thought no one noticed. His mother, Joan, sat across from me with her usual tight smile, like she was tolerating me. Everyone else, cousins, aunts, the usual cast pretended like they liked me. Pretended until they didn't. Vanessa stood up halfway through dinner. She looked straight at me, eyes gleaming with something colder than contempt. "Barbara," she said, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Where's my wallet?" I laughed. It was a reflex, really like someone had told a bad joke, and I was just trying to play along. "What, my wallet?" she repeated, stepping around the table like a courtroom prosecutor. "My gold Balenciaga. It was in the hallway near the coats. It's gone." I stared at her. "Vanessa, I have no idea." "There was $18,000 in it," she snapped. "Cash. I was going to deposit it tomorrow. Now it's missing. Funny, right?" Silence fell like a guillotine. She didn't wait for a response. With a dramatic flick of her wrist, she reached for her wine glass half full of Chardonnay and ice cubes and flung it in my face. Cold liquid soaked my blouse and hair, clinging to my skin like shame. The room gasped. Not one person moved to stop her. "She stole it," Vanessa hissed, turning to the others. "You know, she's always resented me. Working that little hotel job in Savannah. Always acting like she's better than us. Maybe she needed the money. Maybe this is who she really is." I sat frozen, drenched, humiliated. The water dripping from my chin wasn't as cold as the betrayal burning inside me. And then came the worst part. Richard said nothing. Not one word in my defense. Not even a whisper. No one defended me. No one stood up. Not his mother. Not his cousins. Not even the family friend who once asked me to help plan her baby shower. I was surrounded by people who had pretended to love me for years. And now, when it mattered, they let me drown. They kicked me out of the house like a criminal. No coat. No apology. No explanation. Just silent judgment and the sound of a door slamming behind me. I drove home to Savannah that night, 3 hours in soaked clothes, mascara bleeding into my skin, fingers trembling on the steering wheel. I didn't even cry. Not once. The pain was too big for tears. It sat in my chest like a brick of ice. But something else sat there to dot fury. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, reliving every second the way Vanessa had smirked, the way the others looked at me like I was dirt, the way Richard had just sat there, spineless. And then, like lightning through the dark, it hit me. This wasn't just humiliation. It was a setup. $18,000 in a wallet? Who the hell carries that much cash to a family dinner? No one saw her bring the wallet in. No one else went near the coat hallway. She'd staged the entire thing. She wanted a scapegoat, and she chose me. Why? because I'd never fight back. She was wrong. At sunrise, I pulled out my old contacts and called Detective James Monroe, a friend from my high school days who now worked for a private investigation firm in Atlanta. We hadn't spoken in years, but I knew he'd pick up. "Barbara." He answered groggily. "I need your help," I said. "My sister-in-law accused me of stealing $18,000. It's a lie, but I want to prove it, and I want her to regret it." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Send me everything you remember. I'll make a few calls." I didn't thank him. I didn't apologize for the early hour. I wasn't playing nice anymore. I sat at my dining table that morning, still wearing the blouse stained from the wine she'd thrown at me, and I started writing out everything minute by minute. What people were wearing, where they were sitting, what they drank, every dirty look, every fake smile, every carefully timed accusation. This was war. She wanted to see me crawl. Instead, I'd rise, and when I was done, I'd leave her with nothing but ash and silence. Because I may be quiet, but I don't forget, and I don't forgive. By the time Monday morning crawled around, the sadness had curdled into something darker. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't broken. I was furious. And fury, when fed with silence and humiliation, grows fangs. I took the day off work, called in sick. What I was really doing was plotting. No more waiting for apologies. No more hoping Richard would grow a spine. No more giving anyone the benefit of the doubt. They had already decided I was guilty, hadn't they? The only difference now was I was actually going to become the threat they feared. I called Detective James Monroe before 8 a.m. He picked up after one ring, his voice groggy. I didn't wait for small talk. "I need to prove someone framed me," I said, "and I want her exposed publicly." "Good morning to you too," he muttered. But James owed me a favor. Years ago, I'd helped him win a bitter legal fight over his grandmother's estate in South Carolina. Now, it was my turn to collect. We met at a quiet diner just off I-75, halfway between Savannah and Atlanta. It smelled like burnt coffee and desperation fitting. He looked older, more tired than I remembered, but still sharp behind the eyes. "I've seen these setups before," he said as he slid into the booth across from me. "Some rich family princess claims a theft, blames the black sheep, cries a few crocodile tears, and walks away the victim. Meanwhile, the person she blames drowns in shame. She claimed she had 18 grand in that wallet," I said, sipping my coffee. "Who carries that in cash to a dinner party?" "No one," he replied, "unless they're trying to fake a theft. Unless they need a reason to hide money they already spent." My jaw tightened. Then let's start digging. Within 48 hours, James had pulled together a digital footprint on Vanessa that read like the autopsy of a failing empire. Her credit cards, maxed out. Her so-called luxury boutique business, leaking money. Her husband, Marcus, quietly defaulting on payments tied to a shady overseas deal with a property firm in London, somewhere to the tune of £95,000. It didn't take a genius to see what was happening. They weren't successful. They were drowning. They weren't successful. They were drowning. And Vanessa's little performance at dinner was her life raft to staged theft to cover the cash. They'd already siphoned off, likely meant to be claimed through their homeowner's insurance. She needed a criminal. I was just convenient. "She's smart," James said, "but not that smart. You want to nail her? You need her to confirm the lie with her own mouth." Oh, I planned to, and I was going to savor every second of it. That Thursday, I checked into a boutique hotel in Charlotte using my maiden name Barbara Keaton. No traceable links to Richard. I didn't want him knowing I was in town, let alone planning his sister's public execution. I wore sunglasses, paid in cash, and kept to myself like a woman with secrets. Because I sent Richard a short, polite message. "I'm in town. No pressure, but I'd like to talk. Maybe over dinner." He replied 2 hours later like a moth to fire. "Vanessa's doing dinner Friday night. Everyone will be there. It might be a chance to heal." Heal? after being humiliated, accused, and thrown out in the cold. I should have laughed, but I smiled instead. That was exactly what I wanted. Friday evening came. I dressed slowly, deliberately. Black cashmere sweater one Vanessa had complimented once with envy. The gold hoop earrings she tried to borrow the Christmas before. And lipstick the color of fresh blood. I didn't look like a woman seeking peace. I looked like a woman walking into a war zone with a full tank and nothing left to lose. But the real weapon was in my purse, a small audio recorder, voice activated, discreet, deadly. I brought James too. Told the family he was a friend from Atlanta, and yes, maybe we were seeing each other. Vanessa blinked at him with that plastic smile, the kind you use when someone smells a trap but can't prove it. Dinner was a farce. They all tried to play nice. Even Vanessa pretended to be gracious, though her mouth twitched every time I spoke. It was the kind of fake reconciliation only wealthy people think actually works through wine over the wound. Serve roast duck over the betrayal, and pretend nothing ever happened. But I didn't need sincerity. I needed a mistake. Halfway through the meal, as wine flowed and masks loosened, James leaned forward casually and asked the question like he was genuinely curious. So, have you found that $18,000 wallet yet? Time froze for just a second. Vanessa blinked. Her wine glass halted halfway to her lips. Then she smirked, as if she couldn't help herself, as if the performance had ended. "Oh, it's long gone," she said. "I assume Barbara used it to pay off whatever debt she's drowning in from that little Savannah hotel job." There it was. The confession. The arrogance. The fatal misstep. I didn't respond. I just reached slowly into my purse and clicked the recorder off. I didn't need to say anything. She'd done it for me. The next morning, I met James at a nearby coffee shop, my hands still steady with adrenaline. He already had the footage downloaded and backed up. He also had something new, doorbell cam footage from a neighbor across the street. It showed Vanessa sneaking out to her driveway late that same night, the night of the original dinner, and placing something small and shiny in the trunk of her Lexus before re-entering the house. The supposed wallet she later cried was stolen, the final nail in her gold-plated coffin. I forwarded everything to James and said 6 words that tasted like justice. Send it all to the police. The morning after I recorded Vanessa's little confession, I woke up in my Charlotte hotel room with a cold fire in my chest. It wasn't fear, it was purpose. My nerves were taut, but my heart beat steady. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't second-guessing myself. I was marching to war. The sun was just starting to rise, painting long orange streaks across the skyline. But I wasn't watching it for comfort. I watched it like a signal flare. Today, the reckoning began. I met Detective James Monroe at the Mecklenburg County Police Department a little after 9. I wore the same black sweater Vanessa had once mocked, but today it was my armor. My heels clicked against the polished tile like a warning bell. In my hand, I carried a USB drive filled with damning audio, time-stamped footage, and the kind of digital evidence you don't walk away from. James was already waiting, leaning against the wall with that same cool detective expression that told me he was all business. "You sure you want to go through with this?" he asked. I turned to him, eyes sharp. She humiliated me in front of everyone. She threw cold water on me like I was trash. She lied, James. She made me a villain in my own family. I want her destroyed. He didn't blink. Then let's do it. We were escorted into a side room where Detective Angela Ruiz met us, a 30-year veteran with a steely glare and a mind like a bear trap. Ruiz didn't waste time with niceties. She flipped through the file, brows furrowed, silent until she came across the surveillance still of Vanessa dropping something into her trunk. The night of the accusation. Ruiz looked up. "So let me get this straight. Your sister-in-law claims her wallet with $18,000 cash was stolen, but she was seen placing it into her own trunk before accusing you." "Correct," I said, voice unwavering. She also submitted an insurance claim the following Monday for lost valuables. including a designer watch and the cash? James nodded. Over $20,000 total. All false. Ruiz leaned back and exhaled slowly. Looks like we've got filing a false police report, insurance fraud, and possibly criminal defamation. That's a felony cocktail. I smiled, but there was no joy in it. Good. I hope she chokes on it. By noon, a formal investigation was launched. The detectives began tracing Vanessa's financial transactions, pulling her insurance records, and coordinating with the neighbor who'd provided the doorbell footage. Monroe handed over additional bank documents showing Vanessa and Marcus's debt trail, including a bounce check from a shell company in London connected to a £200,000 property scam. By the end of the week, Ruiz called me back. I answered before the first ring ended. "We're moving forward with charges," she said flatly. "You were right. Vanessa's story doesn't hold. Her husband fled to Miami, and we have probable cause to believe they were laundering funds through multiple LLCs and using you as a scapegoat. Have you arrested her yet?" I asked, fire brimming in my voice. "Tomorrow morning. Want to be there. I'll be front row." The next day, Vanessa was pulled from her gleaming white home in handcuffs, wearing yoga pants and a half-washed face. The same woman who'd stood over me like a queen weeks earlier now looked like a cautionary tale. Her neighbors watched from behind curtains. A news van idled at the corner. I didn't flinch. I watched it live, arms folded, heart like steel. The headlines hit the next morning. Charlotte real estate heiress accused of staging theft. Filing fraudulent claims, family feud turns criminal. Woman framed sister-in-law. To cover financial collapse, Vanessa's mugshot was everywhere, hair a mess, eyes puffy. The mask had shattered. I didn't run from the media. I gave one short interview on the courthouse steps. I wore red lipstick and looked the camera dead in the lens. I was framed, I said, by someone who thought I was too quiet to fight back. She was wrong. That Saturday night, I got a call from Richard. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th, I answered. "Barbara." He started, voice small, weak. I had no idea. "I didn't think she was. You didn't think." I interrupted. "That's the problem. You didn't think when she threw wine in my face. You didn't think when your mother called me a liar. You didn't even think enough to call me until now." He was silent. I needed a husband. I continued, and all I got was a man who sits on the fence while women bleed on both sides. "I'm not your wife anymore. I'm done." I hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I felt clean. The following week, subpoenas began dropping like hail. Marcus, desperate to save his own neck, turned on Vanessa immediately. He admitted the whole thing, fabricating the theft, forging insurance claims, using shell companies to launder real estate cash into offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Their empire, built on lies. Their fortune, frozen. Their status, destroyed. And the family? Suddenly silent. No more dinner invitations. No more fake sympathy. Just ghosted group chats and deleted Facebook photos. Nobody wanted to be associated with Vanessa now that the truth had clawed its way out. I didn't just clear my name, I dismantled hers. She built her kingdom on arrogance and manipulation. I tore it down with receipts, patience, and the kind of rage only betrayal can forge. People started treating me differently. At work. In town. Even online. Some called me a survivor. Others whispered about how dangerous I'd become. I liked both. But deep down, one thought lingered. What if I hadn't fought back? What if I'd swallowed the shame and disappeared quietly? What if I let them win? I would have vanished in their lies, buried in their story. But I didn't. I chose fire. And when you choose fire, you don't just survive, you burn the whole illusion down. It was 2 months after Vanessa's arrest when I finally stood barefoot on the porch of my house in Savannah, sipping black coffee, watching the world move on without her. The magnolias bloomed again, as they always did, soft white petals shaking in the breeze like the sky was laughing quietly for me. The silence around me wasn't empty. It was earned. This house, my house, the one they mocked as modest, the one I built through sacrifice and sleepless years, felt warmer now, freer. For the first time in a long time, the air didn't carry the stench of false smiles and buried betrayal, because the rot was gone, and I had removed it myself with fire and precision. The trial started in Charlotte, though it spilled over into Atlanta and Savannah, drawing attention from local press and eventually regional media. People love a good fall from grace, especially when it involves money, lies, and a fake golden couple. Vanessa, of course, pled not guilty. Her lawyer, some polished man in a $1,000 suit, tried to paint her as confused, manipulated by Marcus, a victim of miscommunication and misplaced trust. But facts don't bend to sob stories. The prosecution laid it all out: the fake theft, the forged insurance claims, the audio recording of her smug little confession, the footage of her stashing the wallet, and the kicker, Marcus testifying against her in exchange for a plea deal. That part tasted the sweetest, because the man who once stood by her side, the man who co-signed their lies, panicked the moment the FBI started sniffing around their international dealings. Apparently, the property scam in Asheville had crumbled faster than they'd expected. A $90,000 unpaid vendor tipped off the wrong people, and now there were federal eyes on everything. So Marcus did what snakes do best: he shed his skin and slithered into self-preservation. He admitted under oath that Vanessa had staged the wallet's disappearance, planted it in a fake airbin registered under a dummy LLC, and deliberately accused me in front of witnesses to throw suspicion away from their finances. Watching Vanessa's face as he testified was better than any sentence the court could deliver. She sat there in a gray pantsuit instead of her usual couture, lips pressed so tight they turned white, her carefully constructed world crumbling in real time. That was my justice. And I wasn't done yet. After the conviction, 2 years for felony fraud, obstruction of justice, and filing a false police report, I met with Detective Monroe one final time. We sat in a corner booth at the same diner where we started it all. He slid a piece of paper across the table. "Here's your next step," he said. "Sue her. Civil court. Make it hurt." And I did. I filed for defamation, emotional distress, reputational damage, and legal restitution. The civil trial didn't take long. Vanessa's assets had been frozen, her credibility annihilated, and her attorney looked like he was on his last shred of patience. The judge awarded me $65,000 in damages. Not that I needed it. The money wasn't the point. The win was, Vanessa would leave prison knowing I took everything. Not just her reputation, not just her freedom, but her illusion of power. She underestimated me. That was her first mistake. The second was assuming I'd stay silent. As the dust settled, Richard came crawling back like a lost dog in a thunderstorm. He sent letters, left voicemails, and even showed up at the hotel one afternoon with red-rimmed eyes and a tremble in his voice. I didn't know. He stammered. I didn't realize what she was capable of. I stared at him like I didn't recognize the man I once shared a bed with. Maybe I didn't. Maybe he'd always been this pathetic. "You had a choice," I said coldly. "You watched her humiliate me, and you said nothing. You didn't protect me. You didn't even look at me." He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "You weren't caught in the middle. You stood on her side. You let them bury me." He lowered his head. A man without a legacy. I turned and walked away. He filed for divorce the next week. I signed the papers without reading them. No alimony. No arguments. No second chances. Just silence and peace. In the months that followed, I took a hard look at my life. With Vanessa gone, Richard erased, and the last threads of that toxic family cut loose, I finally asked myself the question I'd ignored for too long. What do I want now? The answer came quietly. A dream I'd buried when I got married. A piece of land outside Boulder, Colorado, where the sky stretched wider and the noise of the past couldn't follow me. I remembered researching it years ago, a place where I could start something of my own. So I took the money from the lawsuit, my personal savings, and what little was left of my broken past, and I built something new. 6 months later, Barbara's hearth and hideaway opened for business. A boutique tucked into the hills, with 6 warm guest rooms, a firelit library, and breakfast served on a sunlit porch overlooking the Colorado Plains. People came from all over New York, Chicago, even London. Strangers walked through my doors and felt something honest. Because here, there were no lies, no knives behind backs. Just coffee. Comfort. And me. The woman they tried to destroy. The woman who burned their kingdom to the ground and built her own castle with the ashes. People ask me now, why Colorado? I always give the same answer, calm and sharp. Because this is where I learned that peace isn't something you find. It's something you build after you've burned everything that tried to break you. And I did. Because my name is Barbara. And no one throws cold water on me and walks away clean.